being the fastest quarterback you've never seen. I'll be right back. There's no quicker way to get into DFS. Play Super Draft today and see for yourself.
We're behind. They're all fired up. What we got to do? First place, our defense has got to go out there and take the ball. Then when we get the ball, we got to have 11 people that's going to do their job and try to score every time you get the football. If we do that, we'll be all right. That will be all right.
Happy Monday, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Football University with me, former Alabama wide receiver, Matt Caddell, where we talk anything and everything football related. And yes, we find a way to bring it back to Alabama, bring it back to the SEC. We're going to have a great show. So, as I mentioned earlier, we talk about anything and everything Alabama. So RTRs, we got a few Roll Tides in the student section. Tell somebody about the show. We have an awesome lineup, a lot of breaking news this past week. So we're going to discuss all of that here at Football University. So RTR, let's get it started. So shouts out to the student section. Shouts out to the all the fans. Hit the like, subscribe, comment, tell somebody about the show. So it's great for all the football heads, and we're going to get it started right here at Football University. And I want to discuss, so we're going to discuss everything from Bama and the NFL, all the different details in the NFL, former Bama players, Alabama football, of course, the QB race, things I think that kind of came open this past weekend. And we're going to just find a way to talk about Alabama football, period. So let's start with my first topic, and I want to start with Alabama, former Alabama football players in the NFL. I want to discuss that Quentin Williams, we know he's due for a big contract. He goes in the long lineage of former Alabama defensive linemen. You look at Daron Payne, LaDainian Tomlinson, A'Shawn Robinson, all of those guys getting paid. And I believe Quentin Williams, with the defensive tackle market, is probably going to look to reset the market. A lot of NFL teams are having OTAs, mandatory minicamps, a lot of contract negotiations. So wouldn't be surprised that Quentin Williams resets the defensive tackle market to go in addition to the long lineage of Alabama talented defensive tackles. So I want to discuss Quentin Williams. Shouts out to Quentin Williams. He's an all-time great. A lot of people love Quentin Williams. So RTR, y'all are rolling. So not only is Quentin Williams going to reset the market, being a former Alabama great, but Trayvon Diggs, I want to park right there. Trayvon Diggs, he's with the Dallas Cowboys, the talented cornerback from Alabama, with the Stephon Diggs brother, the talent out of Maryland. He came to Alabama as a wide receiver, and Coach Saban gave him the grace the great advice to switch to cornerback, and now he's going to be one of the highest paid defensive backs. And, the article came out last week of how Trayvon Diggs is probably going to reset the DB market this year at the cornerback position. And it got me thinking, because this is what we do here at Football University. We find a way to discuss anything and everything football and bring it back to Alabama. But I was thinking, if Trayvon Diggs is going to reset the market, I can only imagine how high the market is going to be for Patrick Surtain, PS2. He is going to get paid. So, I mean, like I said last week, the track record of Alabama cornerbacks, DBs, under the toolship of Coach Saban in that DB room. You look at Minka Fitzpatrick, Trayvon Diggs, PS2. I mean, the list goes on of talented quarterbacks where I think Coach Saban's still the best DB coach in the game. So, all right, I want to discuss that. So that was my first two topics that I want to discuss about the NFL reset market. We're going to take a pause and go to the student section and see what everybody's talking about. Van Edwards, shouts out to Van Edwards. He says, listen, Quinnen will set the market. I'm curious how Washington will pay Payne and Jonathan Allen. I think Jonathan Allen got an extension last year, and I know they renegotiated Daron Payne's a big-time talent out of Birmingham, Alabama. So shouts out to Daron Payne coming from Shays Valley. But, yeah, I think he signed like a 4-year, 3-year, $90 million deal. So speaking of Daron Payne, the Washington Commanders, Jonathan Allen, listen, to me, I think they have the best defensive tackle duo in the NFL, at least one of them, especially in that NFC East division. Daron Payne, Jonathan Allen, two Bama guys. Those guys are go-getters. You look at Quinnen Williams, like I said, the long lineage of Alabama talent at the defensive tackle position is interesting. So like Van Edwards said, Quinnen will reset the market. I'm excited to see him reset the market. So let's go. Van Edwards says, listen, he's rolling. Jonathan Allen might be the freakiest athlete I've ever seen in a long time. We know Jonathan Allen coming from Virginia. He was more of a smaller guy coming from Virginia, more of a defensive end. And then, he got in Alabama's weight program. And I'm going to discuss Alabama's weight program, how he bulked up. He found his positioning under Bo Davis and a few other defensive tackle coaches, defensive line coaches, and he was just outright physical. I mean, he won the Lombardi, the Nagurski from a defensive tackle position. He was a top 15 pick, top 10 pick going to the Washington football team, now the Washington Commanders. And he was just a freak of an athlete from the defensive tackle. I mean, some of the memorable plays of him, making the Superman sack versus Texas A&M, versus Ole Miss, we came back. He had that long fumble recovery where he's rumbling and tumbling, running about 70, 80 yards, gets in the end zone. Daron Payne, I mean, that defense was so intense and physical with Jonathan Allen. So to your point, Van Edwards, Jonathan Allen is one of the freakiest athletes. Like I said earlier, that goes to a long lineage of Alabama defensive tackles. When you look at Quinnen Williams, Jonathan Allen, Daron Payne, Ashawn Robinson, Jaron Reed, who's still in the NFL. So the list goes on and on. So let's stay in the student section. Y'all are rolling. Stephen Hicks makes a great point. As long as our receivers catch the ball, we're going to blow up. Alabama Roll Tide. Yeah, I want to discuss, and I'm glad you mentioned that, Stephen Hicks. I do want to talk about the receivers and shift gears from all this NFL talk. Let's bring it back to Alabama football. And we got all the Roll Tides. I know everybody's so excited, to Stephen Hicks' point, the Alabama wide receivers have to step up and catch the ball. We're making the transition from Bryce Young, and we're bringing in a new quarterback, whether it's Milroe, whether it's Simpson, whether whoever, Lonergan, Buechner, whoever, we're bringing in the quarterback. And it's important that quarterback, takes command of the offense, but delivers a good target. I made the analogy last week how Nikola Jokic for the Denver Nuggets in the NBA Finals, he's so efficient passing the ball. I think it's important that we take the easy passes, the mismatches with our quarterbacks, and able to make accurate passes, get easy passes on targets to our receivers. Throw a catchable ball like Bryce Young did, or it's like Bryce Young is doing in Charlotte with the Carolina Panthers. So Like to Stephen Hicks' points, our receivers need to catch the ball because we're bringing in a new receiver, and our quarterback needs to throw a good catchable ball. That way they can be effective. And I want to stay right here with the receivers. I think, it's important that the wide receivers, continue to work on the game, work on the details. Right now, I believe everybody's here for 7-on-7. All the enrollees are in town, so you're doing a lot of workouts. I will be discussing about Alabama's workout, strength and conditioning, things that I want to see Alabama go to the next level with. But you look at the players now, the receivers, they're working out with the quarterbacks. Everybody should be on campus getting balls up, working on their game. And I think it's important the receivers not only catch the ball, but work on the little details, the intricacies of route running, whether it's, leverage, breaking off routes, manipulating defensive backs, safeties, corners, running routes, having great influence, making guys miss, catching the ball, licking the ball in. So many different things that I think our receivers need to do. To your point, Stephen Hicks, that way they can blow up and take the next step, whether it's Law, Bond, Prentice, Burton, Brooks, Hamilton, Hale, who else? Preston. The list goes on. We need you guys to step up so y'all can do this and make a run and win number 19 for Alabama football. So let's see. We talked to discuss about the wide receivers, how they need to work on their game. So yes, speaking of the wide receivers, let's talk about Malik Benson. I think Malik Benson, I mentioned earlier, I believe he can slide into the first round, having a big year, having a Jameson Williams type impact at the receiver position coming from JUCO. I mean, the guy is just so explosive with him. He doesn't need much. It always looks like him and Milroe have a rapport. Him and Ty Simpson have a rapport. So I just think it's important we have a quarterback that gets the ball to these talented receivers and give them a catchable ball. Take command of the offense, get us in the right play, get us in the right front. Don't turn the ball over. Try to work on dominating the defense. That way we can just be dominant. So, Malik Benson, he does have that explosiveness where he can, make defenders miss, break, as you say, break ankles and blister the defenders. So, yeah, shouts out to Malik Benson. So let's stay in the Sioux section. Y'all are rolling. Jeff Saban in his comment, fall piggyback off my point, quarterbacks just got to process down, to your point, process down, they're playing for the title and get back to the title. To your point, Jeff Stapleton, they do need to just take the easy matchups, take the easy throws. If the defense is giving us easy plays, let's continue to take those easy plays, easy completions, whether it's, simple routes on the outside to get the balls into the playmakers, but make sure we don't turn the ball over, getting it to our playmakers that way they can make plays in space. And, we're adding another element or, attacking defenses from a different perspective or different level, whether it's on the outside, and we still need to stay consistent running the ball. And I think we will do that under the leadership of Tommy Reese. Great comment, Jeff Stapleton. Y'all are rocking and rolling in the Sioux section. Van Edwards is bringing up a good point, and I'm glad you shifted the gears to Jalen Milroe. I kind of alluded to him and Ty Simpson earlier. We're going to discuss them, and why not discuss them right now? So Van Edwards says Milroe has already proven his leadership skills, taking his teammates down the floor. He works hard, he's being loyal. I think it's time for him to shine, do some, work on some time and work. To Van Edwards' part, Jalen Milroe did work out in Tampa, Florida with a lot of guys. I believe Malik Benson, Law, all those guys were down there working out in Tampa, Florida with Jalen Milroe. And to your point, Van Edwards, that does take on some ownership, some leadership intangibles of, listen, I'm working on my game. I'm continuing to develop, building that rapport, that chemistry, that bond with my receivers, working on the talent. So I'm glad to see him take on that ownership. And I think it's all going to pay off down the road that where our offense can go to the next level. So I think to his point, I want to talk about Jalen Milroe. It's good he's working on the timing with these receivers, in Tampa, Florida. But now, I mentioned earlier, now's the time to put it all together, work with, throwing a catchable ball. I still think it's important that Jalen Milroe works on his mechanics as a quarterback, getting the snap, get more comfortable catching the snap with the snap count, how to see pressure, how to see defenders, throwing the catchable ball. I know I sound like a breaker record. Throwing the catchable ball, easy pass, good timing, good velocity, good anticipation. I think the more reps he gets, the more consistency he has, the more confidence and more comfortable he will have at the QB. So Jalen Milroe, keep on doing your thing, but continue to work on your QB mechanics on your own or with a QB coach. That way it just becomes natural to you. A great point right here. Jeff Saban says, stop the stupid penalties. Yes, stop the stupid penalties and no more turning the ball over to Stephen Hicks points. We got to protect the ball. I think that's something that Jalen Milroe can improve on, ball security. Look at the history. Jalen Milroe versus A&M, he had like 3 fumbles versus Texas A&M. We still won the game maybe by like 2 or 3 points. But just imagine if he didn't fumble the ball, 3 times. That's at least 17 or 21 points we leave on the board, so if we won 25 to 21 or something like that, if we add an additional 17 or 21 points, we easily blow out Texas A&M. So ball security is always important with Coach Saban. He's going to play the best guy that takes the command and has that ball security. So great point. Y'all are rolling in the student section. Let's go to my next topic. We're going to stay with the theme of Alabama football. We mentioned Milroe, how he needs to work on his quarterback mechanics. I think, all the guys are there. Ty Simpson, I think they're kind of pushing each other for this quarterback race. But I want to discuss, some news broke this past weekend. Alabama renovated their weight facilities, the weight room down there in Tuscaloosa. We know that, this is part of another phase. They are renovating Bryant-Denny Stadium to get a more modern drainage system. I don't think it's been upgraded in about 30 years. That's helped out. Alabama's renovated the whole entrance, the football locker room going into Bryant-Denny Stadium. So it's all modern. That's where they take all the recruits and everything. But I want to talk about the weight room renovations. I believe, just showing being able to do different things. And I want to discuss David Bilal, the strength coach. I know he did a video, talking about, the different mechanics, the metrics that they use, the technology that they use for their players and how they invest. And I think all that science and is great for injury prevention and, things like that. But I think for me, listening to the video by David Bilal, I'm so used to, I set it up like this. I'm so used to Scott Cochran, bringing the juice, bringing the energy, having you turned up, as they say, 24/7. I need David Bilal. I need my strength coach to kind of bring that, in the video, it was cool. He seems more of a science guy. He's big frame and everything. I'm quite sure he does a great job with the players, but I need a little bit more juice. I feel like it's important that Coach Saban has that motivator, that juice guy within the locker room that always keeps the tempo, always keeps the intensity going, whether that's coaches on the staff or in his strength and conditioning. So David Bilal, if you're out there, bring up that juice even more so too. And I think with that juice, we have the science, but I want Alabama to get back to bringing that Alabama power where we are just physical. We're running the ball physical up front on both ends of the ball, and we're running it, and we're physical on the defensive end as well as special teams. So that, to me, sets the tone. That's the definition of Alabama power. So, hey, David Bilal, bring back the Alabama power, physical type of style. That way, when we get in fourth quarter, we're just steamrolling teams. So I want to talk about that, David Bilal. Hopefully, Coach Saban, if you're out there tuning to Football University, we need to bring back that juice, that energy, that enthusiasm, from our strength and conditioning coaches. I'm quite sure David Bilal does a great job. But the next day they released another video, and it was Coach Constantine, and I think he's one of the head strength coaches as well, and he has more juice. He has that energy, and so I kind of like him more so because he brings that energy. He's able to break it down for the players, and he's physically fit. So Coach Constantine, go out there, bring that juice more, keep these guys amped up or energized to play ball, to be dominant. How Coach Cochran was for us when he first got there, and listen, Coach Saban, he's bringing back former Bama players. He has Clinton Dix, and Clinton Dix, Alabama All-American, first-round draft pick, Green Bay Packer, great. He's able now working with the football team. Maybe he can bring, maybe see what the team's like, and he can maybe intercede and bring that energy for those guys on the sideline, in the locker room, be a great energy example for those guys. So I wanted to discuss that, but the renovations look amazing, from the power, from the technology, the metrics, the measuring. It is going to be successful. Now, I just wanted Alabama to make sure we not get too science heavy, but make sure we bring back that power, that physicality, that tenacity, that intensity on the football field. So I want to discuss that. So let's get to the student section. Y'all are rocking and rolling. Let's see. Y'all are going after the Texas fans. Listen, he said Texas won't be allowed to park the team bus on my block. Make them walk. Yeah, speaking of Texas, Alabama, that second week in Tuscaloosa is probably going to be one of the biggest early season matchups, if not one of the biggest season games of the year, having Texas come to Tuscaloosa at night under the lights and Bryant-Denny, it's going to be electric. And to your point, Alabama needs to have that mindset. As soon as Texas gets off the bus and they come trying in Bryant-Denny, we need to become an headhunter mindset. We need to be dominating for 4 quarters and being physical, bringing back that Alabama power, as I mentioned earlier, bullying the ball, physical on defensive end, running the ball consistently and getting it to our playmakers, not turning the ball over. I think that's what we need to do that night against Texas, and welcome them to the SEC. Let them know this is how we do it here in the SEC down here in Tuscaloosa. So I'm excited about that. So let's stay in the student section. Y'all are rolling. Let's see. Alabama Ty says Texas gets no air conditioning. Yeah, I mean, listen, I don't think we even have to do all that. I just want to do it in between the lines. As soon as that kickoff tips off, let's go. I mean, you can't run no more. You can't do anything else. It's time for you to see us right here and right. The time is now, as they say. So, so let's stay in the student section. Stephen Hicks says, Bama has a really nice weight room to always hit the iron, become beasts. I think you're alluding to my point, Stephen Hicks. Like, Alabama needs to make sure, we have the signs for injury prevention and all that stuff, but we don't need to lose sight of our power, being physical, like just dominating guys for 4 quarters and just being a physical team, bringing back the Alabama power. We can do that. I think that'll be key for our success this year. So, let's go. Y'all are rolling. Somebody had a great comment. 6-0. Shouts out to 6-0. ESPN College Football 23 ranking updated. Georgia 1, Ohio State 2, Michigan 4, Alabama 4. Alabama 4, LSU 5, Tennessee 6, USC 7, Penn State 8, 9. Texas, Florida State 10. Listen, RTR, I'm glad like I said, if you're a fan of Football University, here with me, Matt Caddell, every Monday night, tell somebody how great this show is for all your football head fans, whatever it is, and they love Alabama football. Listen, we're going to bring it back to Football University, but, I'm glad that Alabama's ranked number 4. I love it when they rank us down there. Rank us number 5 or 6. I can go for 7 or 8. I just want Alabama to finish number 1. It's a long season. We've had so many number one rankings. You know, we are the premier college football program, the most winningest college football program, the number one program that's been ranked number one. But at the end of the day, at Alabama, we don't care about being ranked number one. We care about finishing number one, i.e., winning national championships. You know, you go back to Gene Stallings, Bear Bryant, you know, Coach Saban. Like, we're all about winning championships. So, to that point, I hope Alabama's motivated, and I'm glad. I hope they continue to rank us and doubt us. That just keeps fueling the fire for this football team this year, you know, playing with that hungry, non-satisfied mentality, but having that top dog mentality, like, listen, we're going to be dominant and dominate you. So just looking at the list, you know, I think, you know, LSU could be ranked a little higher. I mean, if LSU played Michigan right now, I got LSU. If LSU played Ohio State right now, I got LSU. If Ohio State played Michigan or Alabama, I got Bama. So, you know, I'm all SEC. South Carolina is going to be a problem in the SEC East. Tennessee, I think, is going to be pretty good. I think they'll finish top 10. Penn State, I don't know about. I think Texas is probably the weakest link in the top 10. Me personally, I think Florida State, they could easily sneak into the college football playoff this year, coming out the ACC. I think it's going to come down to them and Clemson, but Florida State could easily sneak in the college football playoffs. And I'm not going to say sneak, but they are really good. I wouldn't be surprised Alabama got to play Florida State this year in the playoffs. You know, it could be there. But Tennessee, I would maybe flip-flop USC and Tennessee. I'll probably put South Carolina at 6 and Tennessee at 7, just because South Carolina beat them last year, and they got Shane Beamer returning as a head coach with Spencer Rattler at the quarterback position. So but other than that, you know, it's all about Alabama and the SEC for me, and I want Alabama to be dominant. And like I said, the SEC West is going to come down to Alabama and LSU. When Alabama and LSU are both going at it historically, that's how in about the past 20, 25 years, the SEC West has always been, you know, kind of separated themselves when Alabama and LSU are both really good. And they're both really good this year. I won't be surprised both teams are in the college football playoffs. So great point, 6-0. Great point. Let's stay in the student section. Y'all are rolling. Shouts out to Nick Saban Jr. Shouts out to Nick Saban Jr. on here. My colleague on the CTS-Sports room. Shouts out to CTS-Sports room. Special Teams podcast with Nick Saban Jr. He does a great job. So I'm going to ask you Nick Saban Jr.'s question right now. What are some of your bold predictions for the season? You know, some of my bold predictions, great point. I think I'm gonna start with where I just left off. I think it's gonna come, the SEC West is gonna come down to Alabama, LSU, and I wouldn't be surprised if Alabama and LSU both make the college football playoff. That could be one of my bold predictions. I still think Alabama's maybe use both quarterbacks, you know, maybe kind of how a Tua, Jalen Hurts type of, you know, year where we take one of the quarterbacks out by the third quarter. And, you know, the other quarterback comes in, whether it's Jalen or Tua. So that's kind of my two bold predictions. And then the SEC, listen, like I said earlier, I wouldn't sleep on South Carolina. You know, Georgia's going to be really good, but South Carolina, listen, Shane Beamer, I talk about that energy, enthusiasm. They got up there in Columbia, South Carolina with Shane Beamer. Spencer Rattler's returning. You know, they beat Clemson last year. I mean, that haven't happened in forever. So, listen, they got a lot of momentum in the SEC East. I would not sleep on South Carolina. They could easily come out the SEC East, but I do think it's going to be Georgia, and I hope it is Georgia and Alabama in Atlanta, because I cannot wait to play Georgia. It's been too long since we played Georgia. It's been so much running off at the mouth, and I want to play them in Atlanta. So, but don't sleep on South Carolina. Tennessee is going to be good in the East. So those are my bold predictions. Nick Saban Jr. So yeah, let's stay in the student section. Y'all are rolling. Alabama Ty. Shouts out to Alabama Ty. He says, bro, South Carolina beats Georgia. Georgia fans, what are you going to do with that? Listen, I think that game is in Athens. I believe it's in Athens. So, it's going to be a tough, environment. Georgia under the leadership of Kirby Smart coming back-to-back national championships. They lose their quarterbacks. They lost Jalen Carter to the NFL. So, they lost Stetson Bennett. They're going to bring in a quarterback. We don't know if it's Carson Beck. We don't know who it is going to be the quarterback. But, at the end of the day, their offense is they're bringing in another offensive coordinator. Their other coordinator, Todd Monken, went to the Baltimore Ravens. He's now working with Lamar Jackson now. And now Georgia has Mike Bobo as offensive coordinator. And for me, historically in the past, I don't know if that moves me. I don't know if that's much of a wow factor for me, having Mike Bobo as the OC. But that's why we play football. It'll be interesting to see. But listen, South Carolina is no joke. Listen, Shane Beamer, like I said, but it's going to be interesting to see. I still think it comes out to Georgia, South Carolina, and Tennessee. But I give Georgia, since they're the defender champs, and they have a lot. Brock Bowers. They have all those tight ends. So it's going to be interesting to see in the SEC East. So let's go. Somebody had a great comment. Oh, Van Edwards. Shouts out to Van Edwards. Shouts out to Nick Saban Jr. Nick Saban Jr., hardest working man on YouTube. Tell them all I said it, from Van Edwards. So let's stay in the suit section. Y'all are naming 6-0 got a great point. This is what we do at Football University. Shouts out to the suit section. Y'all are rolling. 6-0 says, can you name 8 teams with better QBs than our beloved Bama? P.S. Jalen Milroe for Heisman. Just saying. Listen, if Jalen Milroe, let me cover the B part of that question. Jalen Milroe cuts down on the turnovers, ball security, throwing a catchable ball, continue to develop on his QB mechanics, working on, a quicker release, quicker balls to receivers, good velocity, good timing. He has the potential, to kind of have a Heisman or MVP type year with this offense led under Tommy Rees. He likes to run the ball. He's probably going to have quarterback runs. I think what's important for Milroe, he's got to have it up here mentally with the confidence, the mentality, the psychological aspect of the game, the chess part of the game, being able to think critically, how maintain poise when things happen. Don't panic, don't get too anxious or nervous with the ball. You're turning the ball over. That's not how our offense is led. So I think, like I said, I think Milroe and Ty Simpson are going to push each other. But, whoever takes command of the offense and wins this quarterback race, I think whoever it is, Milroe could win for Heisman, but if Ty Simpson wins the job and we're effective and dominating, he could kind of be a sleeper pick for the Heisman. So it's going to be interesting to see. I want Milroe to continue to develop at his QB mechanics, his timing. That way he can have the potential to possibly, take over this quarterback competition and possibly win the Heisman. So I don't want him to get too caught up in the Heisman. I just want him to lead us to a national championship. That's what I care about. Stephen Hicks has a great point. He says, I want Bama to beat everyone, but Tennessee, LSU, and Alabama the most. Obviously, you got to throw Auburn in there because that's just the in-state rivalry. Tennessee, obviously, we owe them this year. They're coming to Tuscaloosa. We had to deal with all that stuff that happened in Knoxville. We weren't prepared on the defensive end. We didn't make any adjustments. We came out with no intensity. We lost. Tennessee had won in 16, 15 years. They licked the fireworks. They played Dixieland Delight. Listen, the gloves are off when it comes to the Tennessee-Alabama rivalry in Tuscaloosa. So we need to, like I said, when you take it to Texas earlier, we need to have that same intensity versus the Volunteers. And as always, LSU, to me, LSU is one of my all-time favorite games, whether it's in Death Valley, in Baton Rouge, or in Tuscaloosa. It doesn't get any better than LSU, Alabama. Those are one of those games where you got to make plays and be memorable. And obviously UGA, I think, like I said earlier, Hopefully we meet Georgia in Atlanta at Mercedes-Benz Stadium for the SEC championship. It's been too long since last time we played Georgia. We didn't get to play them last year because we didn't make the playoffs. But I think if we did make the playoffs, we could have easily won the national championship. But you don't know. But we did make it, so Georgia won it. But I hope we get to meet them in the SEC championship. To your point, Stephen Hicks, Joe Stapleton says, beat the you-know-what out of the Vols and LSU. Of course, we got to take care of them. Stephen Hicks says not to put it out of Auburn. Joe Stapleton talking about, hey, listen, 17 penalties. Listen, 17 penalties versus in Knoxville and Rocket in Neyland Stadium. I still think, we could have made plays and still won the game, but we shouldn't have had those 17 mistakes. We shouldn't have made those careless mistakes. But I think we got the right coaches. Kevin Steele, the great scheme defensively, schematically. Tommy Reese, I think he knows how to make quick football decisions, not make it rocket science, but make it effective. Calling effective games where defenses don't want to have to play Alabama, where we're wearing them down, being physical, getting it to our playmakers, getting it to our tight ends, just being dominant on the offensive end. So, I think we're going to get back to being dominant. Nick Saban Jr., great point. Y'all are rocking and rolling. He says, do you think Earl Little Jr. plays the starting position and Malachi Moore stays at safety? I think so. To me, Earl Little, outside of Terrion Arnold and Kool-Aid McKinstry, I think Earl Little might be our best just all around cover corner, outside of Kool-Aid, he's going to be a top pick. But I think Terrion Arnold has a lot of, multiple variations to his game. He can do different types of skill set. And I don't think outside of Kool-Aid and Terrion Arnold, I think Earl Little is that guy. And I would love for him to be at that star position. I think he can play multiple positions, corner if need be, safety, money. But the play he made in the 8-8 game on Ty Simpson, on Kobe Prentice, where, Ty actually threw an accurate ball that was going to be a touchdown for Kobe Prentice. But Earl Little, the talent out of Florida, he made a great break on the ball. It was pro-level play. So Earl Little, he has elite ball skills, cover skills at the defensive back position. So he's just got to be on the field. He's one of those guys can take over a game and really add a lot of more depth or more just, skill set for that dominant skill set on the defensive end for him, or he could play safety. To your point, he could play safety. I think what Coach Saban and the leadership of T-Rod, they got guys that can do multiple things. You look at a Brian Branch, for instance, he can play inside, he can play outside, he can play safety. He can play star, he can play money. I think Earl Little has that type of, skill set or potential. You look at Malachi Moore, he played star, money his freshman year. Now he's at safety. I think he's better suited for safety position. I think you kind of look at Malachi Moore, and I want to discuss him right now. At the safety position, if you look at I think of the NFL, I think of the year when Tom Brady was with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and they won the Super Bowl. And they played that Super Bowl game down there in Tampa versus Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. You look at Antoine Winfield and that defense, I think Malachi Moore, a little bit of like an Antoine Winfield, kind of an undersized DB, but he's physical. He's got great cover skills. And he led them to help lead them to the Super Bowl, and he can do a lot of things on the back end. So, I think Malachi Moore has that type of potential. But to your point, Nick Saban Jr., Earl Little, Malachi Moore, Caleb Downs, Tony Mitchell, all these guys, they can play multiple positions. Jaden Key, Trey Amos, probably more at the cornerback position. All these guys can play multiple positions and give multiple variations and we can throw multiple concepts, but keep it simple, but keep quarterbacks and offenses on their heels because they don't know where the pressure, they don't know where the coverage is coming. So, I think they can. So, great points by my main man, Nick Saban Jr. Let's stay in the student section. Great points. Lori Caddell says, what do we need to work on more as a team in preparation for playing Georgia again this year? I'm speaking this into existence. If you know, hopefully we won the SEC West. Usually right before we play the SEC championship in Georgia, we've won the Iron Bowl. So yeah, we gotta win the Iron Bowl first and foremost. And I think the reason I say we gotta win the Iron Bowl because that usually gives us so much momentum going into Atlanta, playing Georgia in the SEC West, playing that such rivalry intense game, and then going to the SEC championship. I think that just gives us so much momentum. And on the other hand, Georgia, they only have to play Georgia's Tech. That's not a big in-state rivalry. So I think our road is a lot more tougher again than Georgia to get to the SEC championship. But to answer your question, I think Alabama has to continue to improve and continue to develop, continue to be physical, to continue to be dominant, and keep it fresh, constantly evolving, but keeping the constants, physicality, running the ball, defense, hitting you in the mouth. I think we continue to do that and have the right mindset and, not getting complacent. I think the sky's the limit for this team where they can be dominant, beat Georgia, and go into the college football playoff. Like I said earlier, I wouldn't be surprised. The SEC gets 2 teams in the college football playoff, maybe 2 teams from the SEC West. LSU is that good with Brian Kelly, Jay Daniels at defense, Perkins on the linebacker. They can offer, if they lose to us and win out and then we win, we could easily have 2 SEC West teams in the college football playoff, and we could possibly play them for the national championship. So Alabama's got to come with it. So great point. Let's say, oh my goodness, y'all are so funny. Listen, great point. It says, how many Alabama players make All-American this year? Woo, that's a great question. Alabama Todd, glad you're joining the show. Great question, great comment right here. All-American, let's say. I'm going to say Kool-Aid McKinstry for sure. I think he makes first team All-American. Man. I'm going to throw a sleeper out there. I think not a sleeper. I look at Seven McLaughlin at the center. He has potential to make All-American. I don't know another center that's better than him. I mean, the way he leverages, uses his body, Seven McLaughlin could be there. I said Kool-Aid. I think some of our linebackers possibly can make sure some of our defensive linemen. Hopefully, I'm going to say Kool-Aid, and I think if Dallas Turner, yes, I said Dallas Turner. Dallas Turner needs to have a money year this year. He needs to have at least 14 to 16, 17, 14 to 20 sacks this year in order for him to solidify that All-American. He needs to be first team All-SEC. He needs at least to have 14, 15 sacks, tons of tackle for losses, causing turnovers, just being a disruptive guy that way. Not only can he be All-American, but he can be top draft pick. So I got Kool-Aid, Dallas Turner. I'm going to go All-American on the offensive line. I think we maybe get 2 offensive linemen on the offensive line, whether that's J.C. Latham, whether that's, I mentioned Seth McLaughlin, whether that's Booker, whether that's whoever. So I'm going to say we get 3 All-Americans, possibly 4. You look at the freshman All-American list, it expands. You look at Caleb Downs. I think he has potential to be freshman All-American. I think you look at Justice Haynes, being in the rotation, running back, his explosiveness. He can come in. He could be like 3rd or 4th on the depth chart, but actually be one of our better, if not best, running back, because Jason McClellan is going to eat. Roydell Williams is going to eat. Jam Miller's going to eat. Justice Hayes is going to eat. Richard Young is going to eat. All those guys. So, I would say probably about 4 or 5, including the freshman All-Americans. You look at Caleb Downs, Justice Hayes. Let's say Alabama easily gets 5 All-Americans, but mainly 3 to 4 All-Americans. But freshman All-Americans, I think Justice Haynes and Caleb Downs expand that list to 5. So hopefully that answers your questions. Taking shots back at Georgia's schedule. I mean, they got it made over there in the SEC East. They didn't got to play. One of their biggest rivalries is Florida, and that's a neutral site game. Like we don't have any neutral site SEC West games. I mean, they have the luxury of playing Vanderbilt and Kentucky and Tennessee home and home. They have a neutral site with Florida and Jacksonville. I mean, they got a pretty easy cupcake schedule, and I think that's what Coach Saban. He wants to go to the 9-game schedule with, Greg Sankey mentioned last week in Destin, Florida, at the beach at the SEC Spring League meetings that the SEC schedule is going to go from 8 SEC, and we're going to go to 8 SEC games starting 2024 with the addition of Texas and Oklahoma. No divisions, having 8-game schedule, and hopefully, I mentioned last week they scheduled that one non-conference game with a Power 5 team, maybe like the ACC or Pac-12 or Big Ten or whoever, because you're going to have to get accustomed to it because we're going into 12-team playoffs. So you might as well get used to going into home and homes, playing a playoff game on the road. So it's going to be interesting to see. I'm excited. So, yeah, we discussed Alabama football, Miro, the QBs, the schedule. I want to go to one of my next topics. I'm still staying with the theme of Alabama football, and I want to discuss Coach Saban. Coach Saban did a little. I don't want to use the term politicking, but he was in DC, up there in Capitol Hill with him, Greg Sankey, Woodward, the president of LSU. A lot of these guys, they were in there working on legislation, trying to come up with legislation for NIL, and they were lobbying for NIL legislation. And so, obviously Coach Saban there, he was there with Katie Britt, the senator who's married to Wesley Britt, the All-American out of Alabama who I played with. And so I thought that was a good moment to see. Coach Saban was with, Terry Sewell and her staff while up there, meeting a lot of the Alabama delegation. But listen, Coach Saban up there with Greg Sankey, they were able to, have these meetings with, I mentioned senators, majority leader, Steve Scalise, he had him, Brian Kelly, Greg Byrne. I mentioned LSU's AD Scott Woodward and Bama President Stuart Bell, and they were up there lobbying for NIL legislation. So it made me think about how Coach Saban's always trying to think of the game, how to, with the rules that we have, how can we innovate the game and make the game where everybody we kind of have more balance, more parity, and it's not a lot of exploitation. We kind of get some rules in place. So, Coach Saban's that leader. He's that type of leader. So Coach Saban's that leader. And, at the end of the day, Coach Saban traveling, going to D.C., being in D.C. and meeting with all these people. At the end of the day, Coach Saban took advantage of that trip, not only for NIL legislation lobbying, but for recruiting purposes. Coach Saban loves to take advantage of recruiting. And like I said, he's always trying to be innovative, come up with creative minds. That way he can kind of innovate, be that leader to kind of elevate the game with the rules that we had in place. So I just thought that was very interesting. I still think, like I said, Saban being the innovative leader, he's still showing that he's the best when it comes to managing NIL, as how it comes to our rules. I know NIL and transfer portal has kind of changed the landscape of the younger generation, these level of kids, the landscape of recruiting. But I think it's always constantly evolving. Like I said earlier, Coach Saban's trying to work on being innovative and kind of have some type of guidance. That way we can better manage NIL for the players as well as for the institution. So, I had to shout out Coach Saban because he is the GOAT. He is the leader up there in Capitol Hill. And they got me thinking, Coach Saban, if he's up in D.C., he's automatically the most powerful man in DC. No matter who's in the room, if you put all those guys, all the top leaders in that room, Saban's still the top leader in there. So he's still the most powerful man. So Coach Saban, got to give you a shout out. So, so we discussed Saban. So let's go to the student section. Y'all are go back to the student section. Y'all are rolling. He said Kirby will really cry when UGA loses. Listen, like I said, I can't predict the game, but I just hope Alabama wins the SEC West. We're looking forward to playing Georgia in the SEC championship in Atlanta. I can't wait. It's been too long, or as the song says, it's been a long time coming, for us to finally meet Georgia again. Because, listen, like I said the other week, they are up 2-0 against us. If this was a series, 2-0 as in national championships the past 2 years. So we got to, get back and set the tone back in the SEC. Not only SEC West with LSU, but in the SEC general, make sure we bring back the SEC championship trophy and go win that national championship. So let's stay right here. Blackshear is going to be a beast mode this year. I think a lot of linebackers, Jahad Campbell, Deontay Lawson, who else? Trezon Marshall, Justin Jefferson. I think all these guys are going to be beast mode. I think it's important we play more guys, rotate these guys, have more different packages, and continue to give these guys quality, consistency, depth. That way they can, it just helps our team in the long run. So when we do play Georgia and when we do play LSU, we can do so many multiple variations, at linebacker, at running back, and so many offensive line, defensive line. We can make it happen. We continue to have depth. So, yeah, hopefully Blackshear has a beast mode this year. I think he can do so many multiple things. He can play inside linebacker. I think he's big enough being a grown man coming out of high school, out of Texas. He's going to be a special teams guru. I think he can have that physical impact like a Matt Wilson, like a Reuben Foster had on kickoff coverage, come down, land the wood. Setting the tone. I think that can get him on the field defensively more. Certain packages, you can line him up on the defensive end. So we can do a lot. So I think he adds a lot of quality depth at the linebacker position. So I hope he has a big year, as well as all of the other linebackers on the Alabama football team. So let's go to Stephen Hicks' comment real quick. He says, the main thing about kicking UGA behind is I want a public apology to save him from Pollock to make Uncle Lou shut down his channel. Yeah, I don't think we need an apology from David Pollock. I just think we don't need an apology from him. I think we just need David Pollock to continue to rant and rave about Alabama. That way it just adds more fuel for Coach Saban, this football team. Because the only thing that does is keeps Coach Saban in the lab, going back to square one, making sure he comes up with a master plan, to your point, Stephen Hicks. So let's see. Let's stay in the student section. Great comment here from James Knox. How many hours per week is dedicated to football for a D1 football player? So the NCAA, obviously back in the Bear Bryant days, you can have unlimited scholarships. You can practice you can do 3-a-days. You can do so much more things back then as opposed to now. The NCAA got more involved. They want to have more restrictions, make sure players were making sure they were students as well as athletes, managing their time, making sure you have strict guidelines. So I think the most hours per week is 20 hours per week, to answer your question, James Knox. And so with that, you have meetings and practice. So that's probably 3.5, 4 hours per week. So, per day. So with working out, so you're looking at about 20, 25 hours, I believe, per week for a D1 athlete when it comes to football. So hopefully that answers your question. Love this comment. Saban for president. Back to my point. Listen, if you put Saban in Capitol Hill, you can put Saban around the world with world leaders. I still think he's the most powerful man in the room. I mean, you can put all the world leaders, everybody's going to be looking up to Coach Saban. I mean, he sets the tone. He has the mentality. Like, he is like the most powerful man. So, listen, Coach Saban for president, he pulls a lot of weight. I know you got everybody in the SEC would be so glad for Coach Saban to run for president, especially in our own state, Auburn fans for sure. Georgia fans for sure, LSU fans, Tennessee fans. So he's already got the SEC. So, I mean, obviously he can get Ohio State and Michigan and all. I mean, he can get everybody. So never know. But I want Saban to be in the White House because next year we won that 19th national championship. So Coach Saban continue to be our president here at the Alabama Crimson Tide. So yeah, great comment right there. Listen, 6-0. South Carolina is gonna be gonna be tough. Like, they are tough. Shane Beamer, Spencer Rattler. I think it's a three-headed race coming out the SEC with East Georgia, South Carolina, Tennessee. Don't sleep on South, khaki lacking, as they say. Jeff Stapleton says UGA schedule so sweet. You can get a toothache from it. Really? Wow. I love it. Shots fired. Shots fired. So listen, we're gonna go. He says Nick Saban reminds me of Ronald Reagan. Nick Saban reminds me of Harrison Ford in Air Force One. You know, he's like no BS. You know, he's protecting the family. That's how I kind of view Saban if he was president. You know, he's structured. He's not wasting time. You know, he's making sure he takes care of us here at home. So yeah, great comment right there. Great point here. Carla Hinton, great comment. She says everybody's concerned about Alabama QBs, but not worried about the number one team with no QB. You know how it is. Everybody, Alabama is college football, and so we are the headlines. So to your point, I mean, nobody's really worried about the team with no number one team with no QB because does it really matter? The news is with Alabama. Alabama football is college football, and that's what everybody's concerned about. So, I mean, it just comes with the territory. That's how we roll at Alabama. Stephen Hicks says, I love to see Coach Saban holding Pollock getting 5 on leashes, holds up the trophy. Listen, I think Coach Saban is just taking notes. You know, Brian Kelly, we mentioned LSU. He mentions how he loved beating Alabama. You know, Farnbaum, David Pollock. I mean, all of this is fuel for Coach Saban. So I'm excited. Great point. He says, if Alabama beats Texas, we will be number one in ranking. We might be. You know, I got to look at all the other SEC schedules. I don't know who LSU starts off with. I don't know if they play Florida State again. But, you know, we might be number one, but I don't want us to get too caught up in being number one in the regular season. You know, I think our end goal game is to finish number one, finish that national championship. And I think Coach Saban, having not won a national championship the past couple years, is going to keep the right mindset, the right hunger, the right type of focus for this team to win that 19th championship and make sure they are on top. So we are winding down. I want to go back to the NFL, and I want to discuss Bryce Young. A lot of news coming out. Bryce Young, how he's starting to get first team reps for the minicamp and OTAs. And, you know, rave reviews again. You know, Frank Wright mentioned that this is where they want Bryce Young in their development. You know, GM Scott Fitterer circa this time, how that's where they want Bryce Young to be. And, you know, everybody's just raving about him, whether it's DJ Shark talking about or Mingo, how they're talking about how he throws a catchable ball, how he has great timing, how he's, you know, he's showing great leadership skills, being accepted by the players, and how Coach Bryce is just, you know, humbled and grateful, but he's continuing to work and continue to be dominant. So listen, that NFC South, I'm pulling for Bryce Young. I know we got a lot of Falcons fans out there. I'm here at Football University, but listen, I'm a Bryce Young fan. And I'm rolling with Bryce Young. You know, in the NFC South, I think he has potential to win that division this year. And listen, everybody's raving about his skill set, what type of leadership he is. And so I want to discuss Bryce. So Bryce Young's doing great. Tua Tagovailoa is doing great. Throwing dimes down there with Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle. He looks like he bulked up. He looks really good. So, listen, I had to discuss those Alabama quarterbacks. So, Alabama now has 4 starters in the NBA, in the NFL. That's how we do it. So, let's go rapid fire real quick. Carla Henderson said, do you think Richard Young will be in rotation? Yes. I do think Richard Young will be in rotation. I think we'll have 5-man rotation at the running back position. Jace McClellan, Roydell Williams, Jam Miller, Justice Hayes, or Richard Young. Yes, he will be in the rotation. We have a physical offensive line. We want to be dominant. Tartan Reese is going to run the ball in different types of ways, get touches to his running backs and skill players. We're going to be effective on the offensive end. Yeah, like Jeff Saban says, I don't want to be number one, and I want to be number one. We hold up that trophy. It's all about finishing number one. We got the Niners fans in the house. Go Niners. Listen, 6-0. Yeah, they are down Bryce Young. I think Bryce Young had a great quote. They said, Bryce Young, they're always talking about how short you are and your height. And Bryce Young says, I don't really care about their opinion. I hope, however their opinion is, I don't care. I'm going out there to work on my game and dominate the opponent. So I love that character, that type of demeanor that Bryce Young shows. And shouts out to the Falcons fans. Rise up there in the house. Falcons fans, y'all need to go back to y'all old uniforms. Take away those ATL uniforms. Sorry, get back to y'all old uniforms. And Falcons fans, y'all should have drafted Bryce Young. Why didn't y'all go draft Bryce Young? I mean, that would have been a win-win. Or at least go get Lamar. I don't know. But I'm not – hey, Arthur Blake, if you're tuning in, Football University, call me. I can be a GM. I can get you right. So, yeah, Alabama needs to finish number one. So, listen, that's been a great show. We discussed everything, anything Alabama football. Find a way to bring it back to Alabama. We discussed NFL, SEC, Saban. We do it all. Listen, tune in next week for another edition of Football University here with me, Matt Caddell, where we talk anything and everything football related. We find a way to bring it back to the best program. Alabama, the University of Alabama, RTR. Tune in next weekend. Here at Football University. Have a great week, and I'll see you all soon next week. Thanks.